Welcome, everybody, to She Said with Jude Southerland Kessler. And I am Lanea Stagg, the author of the Recipe Records Cookbook series. You can find those books at www.laneastagg.com.
And I'm Lena's trusty sidekick, Jude Southerland Kessler. Excited because I'm headed for the fest for Beatles fans in New Jersey, the 31st of March through the 2nd of April. Cannot wait. And for the first time, I'm going to have the new book, Shades of Life, Volume 5 in the John Lennon series with me. So for those of you who hadn't had a chance to live the first part of 1965, it is one wild ride. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you there. And wow, do we have a great guest today or what, Lanea?
Absolutely. Well, Jude and I haven't had a show since October of 2022. So this has just been really a great way to start 2023 with our dear friend, Sara Schmidt, who has several books. And she is releasing her newest book at the Fest for Beatles Fans in New Jersey, which is coming up, March 30th, just in a couple of weeks. And so we're here to celebrate and tell you guys about it, show you a little bit about it. It's going to be super grand.
It is. It is very honestly, guys, a collector's book. I mean, it is full of, I'm not saying it's like a coffee table book that's all photos and no information, because it's loaded with great information, one-of-a-kind information that you've never heard before. But it is a beautiful book with a cover that we're going to talk about in just one second. And I printed it off of the PDF that she sent me, but I'm going to hold it so that you can see. How close can I get? It is just, it captures the spirit. Go closer. Is that okay? It captures the spirit of the Beatles fan clubs. And it is just absolutely beautiful cover done by Eric Cash. And we're going to talk to Eric in just a few minutes. The inside, the layout is museum quality. Every page is a work of art. I look at a page and I think, that's my favorite page. And then I turn the page and go, that's my favorite page. It's museum quality. This is a book that I'm going to have to probably break down and somehow buy 2 copies, because I write notes in my books and I want to have one that's pristine. You're going to love it. It's called Dear Beatle People. And it is about all of the fan clubs in North America, Canada, and the United States. Rare interviews with presidents of Beatle fan clubs, members of Beatle fan clubs, what they did at their meetings, what's the difference between an independent club and a sanctioned club, who started the first clubs, on and on. It's a vast history of the Beatles fan clubs. And as John Lennon once said, we owe everything to the fans. Without them, it's like Elvis, without them, we're nothing. So it's a part of history that hasn't been done before. And so we are very, very excited to say to our dear friend from the Beatles at the Ridge Festival for 7 years, I think, and the Fest for Beatles Fans, Sara Schmidt. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, it's great to see you girls again. It's been a while since we've all seen each other, so it's good to see you. And thanks for having me on She Said.
It's been a long road with this book, hasn't it?
It's been a very long road with this book, yes.
How long
longer than it should have been.
How long did it take?
I started writing or interviewing people in 2017.
Wow.
And it's been every day, nonstop up until today.
That is a real.
There's a lot of information to cover, and you did it meticulously. So, you know.
Well, I had a certain vision in mind, and I didn't want it to come out any other way. So I was kind of picky about it.
Well, let's start with the cover, which is, like I said, it captures the spirit of the Beatles fan clubs. And guys, this is not the size of the book. The book is big. It is a big book.
It's 8.5 by 11.
Yeah, it's what I printed from the PDF. But Sara, introduce us to your cover artist.
Well, this is Eric Cash, and he is very good artist, and he also does Beatles art. And Eric, I didn't know at the time, but when I started interviewing people for the book, he had also thought of this idea of a book about the Beatles fan clubs. And so we kind of started talking about it, and then I asked him if he'd do the cover for the book.
Eric, it's gorgeous. Tell us about your vision and some of the details. Like, of course, I see the number 9 on cloud number 9 for John's number 9, but tell us about the cover of the book, Eric.
Well, it's kind of inspired by a lot of the fanzines like 16 Magazine and Tiger Beat, because you had a lot of connection. There was a lot of overlap between the fanzines, and you know, even though it's a Teen Beat magazine, there was a lot of fan club, you know, things, information and newsletters and things like that. So I just thought it would be a fun way to sort of introduce it. It's Dear Beatle People, but it's also, you know, it's for the fans, it's about the fans, but it's for them. And it really just celebrates their dedication to it. And I just wanted to do something fun. I had a couple of starts and stops, and I was working on a full-blown painting that I was going to do with a bunch of girls, and like a Rockwell with a bunch of girls in somebody's bedroom as a fan club meeting is going on. But I just realized a lot of the detail was going to be lost, and I thought this would be a good solution. So the inside of the book, too, is full of, you know, art contest and sing a song and, you know, hey, pick out the 5 errors. So it's just got a feel through it all the way through. But, yeah, labor of love.
How long did it take you to complete that, Eric?
Oh, probably a few months. You know, just the inside of the book, it kind of never ends, like Sarah can attest to. There's just so much information that you just feel like you don't want to leave any meat on the bones. You feel like you want to do this thing, and you don't want, there's no way anybody else could do a fan club book on the American fan club. So anything that would come along, you're like, I have to include that. I have to include that. And it was the same way with the art. Every little thing led to something else, And, oh, it'd be cool if we did that. Well, do we have the time? Well, we're in this far. Let's do it. So we yeah.
It's great. I love how you have the girl up here saying, it's gear, dear.
Yeah.
I love that. So cool. And then tell us about this comment right here.
Help me out. What is
Sarah and Sean, are the rumors true?
Oh, because that was, you know, that's Sarah can talk about that.
Yeah,
but that was
Sarah,
some of the, you know, it was just some of the fun things, little things they would have on the front. Growing up,
tell us, Sarah.
Well, in the 60s, I just absolutely loved the little, you know, the faces with the little cartoon people. And it'd be like Mickey Dolenz giving Mark Lindsay a hot foot while Patty Boyd is, you know, hanging on. I just always thought that was fascinating. And I liked a lot of that. I wanted to do a little bit even more that I could do on that, but I just love it, you know.
Well,
so that's Sarah can talk about that, you know.
Yeah, Sarah, tell us about this.
Well, Sean was my long-term significant other that passed away in 2019 when I was in the middle of writing the book, actually. I remember I was writing chapter 1967, sitting in the hospital with him at the time. So he has been there from the beginning, and he always encouraged me to write Beatles books, and I wouldn't have written them without his encouragement, because he was like, you have to write books about the Beatles. You have to. This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Erica just put that in there as a little Easter egg for people that are in the know that it was.
I love it. I just love it.
Fun. And you know, his sister saw the cover of the book, and yeah, she's like, and I didn't say anything, and I just saw a tear, one little tear go down. I was like, oh, I didn't mean to make you cry, but I don't know, it really touched her. Like, you included Sean in your book. I was like,
it is so great. Well, we've got 2 other surprise friends for you who popped in to congratulate.
It's the whole team.
Yeah, Amy is here and Janet is here. And oh, look.
Oh, that's cute.
Janet, say something so that'll show up on the screen.
Hi, everybody. And I have my research assistant here. For those of you who know, my little kitty Hadley. He's listening too.
Aw. And Amy, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a little bit cold down here in Florida, but I'm going to be okay.
Oh, no.
Taking a day at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Eric, I know you need to go, but before you depart, and you're welcome to stay if you'd like, tell us what you're working on currently, and will you or will you not be at the fest?
I will be at the fest. I have currently a limited edition painting that I had made for Revolver. And really, I started it long before the box set came out, but it's a realistic painting of the cover of the album. And so limited editions are available, but then I'll also be selling it at the fest. So there's that one. And I'm working on another one right now. It's just a great image of John just really rocking it out with his casino in '66. I love it because it's one of the few that I get to paint where there's shadows, because so much of the Beatles lighting and shadow is always dramatic in a painting, and so often they're in studio, there's no lighting, there's no dramatical light source. Then when they are outside, it's England, so it's foggy anyway, so there's no. So this is a great shot of them in concert in '66, Crosley Field. So I am both ends trying to get the thing done so I can have it ready also.
Don't show us the painting if you don't want to, but can you give us a glimpse of your studio so we can see?
Oh, it's a mishmash of a lot of things. I had it more art-centric when my kids were younger and sharing a room, my boy and a girl, but when they got old enough, one of them had to move in, and so my Beatle collectible room took over, and there's all kinds of stuff, and it's just, I don't even know where to begin, where it ends. It's everywhere.
Wow.
But,
it's here, there, and everywhere.
I could show you a glimpse of the new painting if you want to see. I don't normally ever do this, and anybody who knows me knows I never ever do this, because it always ruins the surprise a little bit, but I will show it. You just got to know that it won't look like this at the end, but okay. So
Sarah will never know when I take it home.
See it?
Oh, yeah.
Sort of.
Can you see it though? I mean, all the way to the bottom?
No, we only see a tiny
Let's
portion.
go left a little.
Go the other direction.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There he is.
Oh, yeah. Good.
That is going to look so good in my house.
Nice.
Lots of texture.
Oh, wow.
Well,
yeah, because those cotton jackets that they wore, I mean, it'd be a crime not to. I just love painting anything with texture. I don't, I love the challenge of making cotton look like cotton and steel look like steel and whatever.
Yeah,
so
you
that's
do.
it. Well,
You
Sarah, been great. You girls have a good time. Talk it out. It's a fabulous book. It's the labor of love. What I love about it, it's the kind, as Sarah mentioned early on, I had the idea. I was bugging Bruce about it all the time. You've got to do a fan club book. He's like, God, there's too much research. There's too much this and that. So it took somebody like Sarah that's going to be a research hound, that's going to go after it and make a complete book. It's the kind of book I would want to buy. As a Beatle fan, a Beatle fan club fan, and as a collector, it's the kind of book that I would want to buy. So I'm excited about it. It's going to do well. And peace and love.
Oh, thank you, Eric. We really appreciate the gift of your
Thanks,
time.
girls.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
We'll see you in a few
Thank you,
weeks.
Eric.
Bye.
All right,
Thank
see
you
you
very
soon.
much. Well, Sarah,
Bye.
that just shows you are beloved, because you know that he was super busy, as Amy and Janet were. In fact, Janet canceled the meeting to be here tonight.
Wow.
So everybody.
I'd rather be here.
Yeah. So we really are proud of your diligence and your hard work, so much. Well, we talked about your cover, but let's talk about the research that went into it. I know that your first book, Happiness is Seeing the Beatles, Beatlemania in St. Louis, you worked on for quite a few years, but I think that this one took even longer. And I know that you not only did secondary research, but you did a lot of primary research. Tell us about what happened.
Oh, I set out to talk to as many people that were involved in a Beatles fan club in North America as I possibly could. So I would take, like, for example, on the back of the 1969 Beatles poster that the fan club put out was a list of all the fan club secretaries for every state. So I started Googling every single person. And I went to whitepages.com and I got a subscription to that. And I started looking at age ranges. All right, if you're between 60 and 70, I think is kind of what I said. And I would handwrite letters and mail them out, like hundreds of them. And so I heard back from some people like that. Quite a few people I actually heard from. You could be surprised. I also got some letters like, who are you? Why are you messaging me? I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, leave me alone. I'm like, sorry, wrong person with that name. Okay.
Oh my gosh, people are so funny. I mean, why would they just not answer you instead?
Well, that's, I mean, some I didn't answer, and I figured, okay, either that's not the right person with that name, but no, they'd write back and say, I like the Beatles.
That's hilarious. I used to run a YMCA in Kansas City, and we sent out a promotional. And if you were interested, you would detach the little tear-off thing, put a stamp on it, and mail it back, and we'd contact them. One lady tears it off, puts the stamp on it, and writes on the card, I am not one bit interested.
Okay.
Hello, lady. Why did you go to that trouble, you know? Why did they answer you back?
Oh.
Well, was there anyone that was a great find that you were thrilled to find and you didn't think you would?
At a year ago, last March, I found the person who was, first she was president of the Paul McCartney fan club. And she was also the head of all of the Beatles chapters from like 1968 to 1972. And I never thought I would ever find her because I tried and tried. And all of a sudden she pops up on Facebook, and I swear the whole world was messaging me like, go to the such and such Beatles page or whatever it was. She's there, she's there.
Oh my gosh, that must be exciting. Well, Amy, before you came on, we were talking about the layout. I honestly have never, I mean, I've got quite a few Beatles books, and I've never seen a layout like that. It's absolutely exquisite.
It is. It's gorgeous.
It is. You tell us about that part of it, because that was your role, right?
Yeah, I had an existing issue situation. I actually let me do a bit of a backstory. I did not know anything about this project, say, until last May. And it turned out that I was attending Paul McCartney's show down here at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. And Sarah was coming with her mom, Coral. And she and I were talking, and then she started talking about the book and said that it had been really hard to get this thing together. It'd been a real struggle. It had started, but she wasn't quite happy with the ways things were going. Nothing to do with Eric. We love Eric, Sarah.
Opposite of, Eric's been the biggest fan the whole time from day one.
And so I knew nothing about this project until Sarah and I started talking. We're literally out in the parking lot at Camping World before the show starts. And we started talking, and she says this, that, and the other thing. And I said, oh my gosh, I wish you'd contacted me earlier, whenever this project started for her. And because this is what I do for a living. I'm a production designer. You know, I take people's ideas and I make them. So I said, I'm real familiar with all the applications, this, that. She goes, okay, well, if I don't get any satisfaction within the next month or so, she goes, I'm so close to, like, this is not going to happen with the person I'm using. She contacts me and says, yep, it's not happening. Here it is. So that's what she did. And then she and Eric and I basically had a collaborative relationship from then on. We said, we like it this way and that way. And it was really Sarah's vision, to be honest. And it's just it was my joy to be able to help bring that all together into a form that she would be happy with and that Eric would be happy with. And he would be giving me, there's special pages inside the book that he did, and his humor is so whimsical, which perfectly fits the tone and the subject of the book. And the one great thing about putting this entire book together is actually being able to read the book while you're doing it. And I found it absolutely fascinating. There's so many images and photos of people and places that I would not have known about, even going through everything that Sarah's done on her website, Meet the Beatles for Real. It's just like, I have a good friend, Bob Keeling, who's just written a book about the Beatles in Florida. And we joke about how I'm always granular. You know, I go subatomic when it comes to the Beatles. And I really felt Sarah did that so well. You know, in all the research that had to be done. So I was super happy that I was able to finally put this puppy to bed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, every page is frameable.
It's all due to Sarah, you know, her collection of Beatle memorabilia and the access that she had to photos from the people that she spoke to. It was stunning. And, you know, the whole thing is with the Beatles, you have to mash all of that time into such a short, you know, to a small box. It's like, you know, it's like putting 50 pounds of potatoes into a 2-pound sack and making it readable, enjoyable, and fun. And you can relate to a lot of these women. Some of them we know, some of them we don't. They all had the same vision. You know, they loved the Beatles. This is what they would do for the Beatles. And it was incredible. I really enjoyed reading it as I was doing it.
Yeah. And Sarah, you said that you have over 100 color photos in the book. Is that right?
Well, I have over 100 photos, and the ones that are could be they are in color. Like this book is in color.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of lost track counting how many photos there are. I started and I was like, this is a lost cause. There's too many.
Yeah.
Just in the last book in the John Lennon series, I had 25, 30 photos, and it cost me $500. So I can't even imagine how much it costs to put that book together.
Right.
You know, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, the book is $69.99.
Good.
That's the reason why. And I've already had some complaints about that, but that's okay. I expected that.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it for Eric's work. Eric's work is beautiful, you know.
Right.
All of the information. You're gonna help all of these women that were in Beatles fan clubs go back to their childhood or their teenage years, and they're gonna be, you know, you're making that all come back to life again for them. And I think I would pay it.
Yeah.
It's like buying your lunchbox from school, you know, that you had when you were a kid, you know.
Right. I did as much as I could to make the price low, because at first when I started, it was like going to be $120 each. And I was like, okay, what can we do here to get the price down some? Because, and I mean, I did the best I could to try to get it without, you know, making it look bad, because I needed it to still look good, but.
Right.
So
yeah,
I'm excited to see the book, since I haven't seen a copy of it, just the digital form.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be exciting.
It's going to ship straight to the fest, right?
Yes, although the publisher did tell me he's going to send a couple copies to me that I should get on like the 25th. So
that'll be exciting.
It will be. It'll be very exciting.
That'll be a happy, happy day, and you can post that everywhere on Facebook. I
know. I probably will just be in shock and not believe it's really there, but.
Well, that is great. Well, Amy, you are more than welcome to stick with us if you want to. We're going to be talking about different aspects of the book, or if you want to tell Sarah congratulations, if you got something else to do, we totally understand.
You know, I'm going to hang around because I rarely get a chance to, especially with someone like Lanea and yourself and Janet. It's just like, whoa, it's a whole gathering of us all in one project.
That is
Beatle nerds.
Thank you.
Beatle nerds unite.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. Well, Sarah, let's talk for a second about one of the things I learned in the book, and then we'll talk to Janet about the editing of the book. But one thing, you let us, Lena and I, have a PDF so that we could read the content and everything. And I knew nothing about the Beatles fan clubs. My parents would not let me join a Beatles fan club because John Lennon was a hoodlum. And, you know, I would get called into my dad's study once a month. He'd sit me down. He'd say, "You're in love with John Lennon. It's got to stop." And it would end up with him smacking me with a ruler every single time. And it did nothing but made me fall in love with John Lennon more than before. But,
Right.
you know, I couldn't join the Beatles fan club. So I was thrilled when about 8 or 9 years ago, Frida Kelly sent me a Beatles membership fan club card and a pen. And I was like, I'm finally a member. So I knew nothing. There is a big distinction between an independent club and a sanctioned club. Tell us about that.
Yes, there definitely is. And this is strictly, from what I can tell, is an American thing. I can't really see in England where there is independent and sanctioned clubs, which is why originally my idea was to write about the Beatles fan club in general. And as I started digging, it was like, whoa, the British one is 100 times different than the American one. They just need to be separated. Right. So a sanctioned club or chartered club has an actual charter, a piece of paper charter from Beatles. Well, if it's pre-1968, Beatles USA Limited. After 1968, it's official Beatles fan club. And that means that all of the members in that sanctioned club pay their dues to the official Beatles fan club. They're $2 a year dues, plus they pay the dues to the charter club. And that charter club is ran following all the rules of the official Beatles fan club.
And what would that entail? Like, what would be different from an independent?
You can't advertise your club. Like, you can't go into 16 magazine and advertise your club, or go on the radio and advertise your club. You have to have at least 20 members that are paid their dues. And the official club would try to tell you what to say. Like, we want this news about the Beatles spread, but don't talk about, you know, rumors that you're hearing. That was the biggest thing, was like, you girls are hearing these rumors going around that, you know, Paul's dating Peggy Lipton or whatever. And you know, there's these rumors. We don't want rumors out there. Paul is dating Jane Asher. That's it. Right. That's a story. You know, that's official, what's going on.
Yeah.
The independent clubs had no connection to the official Beatles fan club, and they ran completely on their own without any help from the higher ups. They didn't get the official charter. They advertised wherever they wanted to advertise, and they found their news from foreign magazines, newspapers, word of mouth, and they had a lot more fun.
That's what I was just thinking. I was thinking, what's the benefit of belonging to the sanctioned club? What's the benefit of that?
There really was. I mean, okay, so in 1968, that's when the big shakeup happened. And that is when the cease and desist letters were sent to all the independent clubs in the United States, telling them that they needed to stop having their independent club and join with the official Beatles club. And this is what they said. Now, listen how terrible this is. They said, the Beatles are ashamed of your club and you are embarrassing them. They want you to join the official club and stop yours. Now, you're a 16-year-old girl. I mean, wouldn't that be the most devastating thing you ever heard?
That's pretty bad.
This fan club that you have poured your heart and soul into.
Traumatizing.
And
yeah.
To honor the Beatles, like that, you're trying to do your best to honor them, and you get a letter from their lawyer saying the Beatles are embarrassed of you and ashamed and you need to stop. I mean, and what I've discovered is that the girls that received this letter to this day, until I told them, didn't realize that it was a form letter.
Right.
That all 133 of them got the exact same letter. They thought up until now that it was a personal letter to them.
Wow.
Like just them.
Yeah.
Like they knew all of them had to end, but they thought this whole thing with the Beatles are embarrassed of you and all that, like that was a written note to them. But no, it was a form letter that all 133 independent clubs at that time got.
Did the sanctioned club get any benefit for being sanctioned? Like, did they get a special pin, or is there anything?
They did. They got the records. If you were the president of the sanctioned club, you got the records. You didn't have to pay for. That's how a lot of people got the Butcher cover. That still have, like, that's how a lot of the Butcher cover albums are out there today, is because the presidents of the fan club, official fan club members, all got them. So they got the records ahead of time. They would get, like, the stuff that the fan club members had to purchase, like the photos and the booklets. They would get that stuff for free because they're supposed to use it to advertise, at their club meeting. Now you can order this John Lennon photo. Everybody pass it around, look at it. It's only $1 from the club. You send the club your money, so they got all that stuff. And they got correspondence with Bernice Young, who was the National Fan Club president. Until
go crazy.
Bernice was a sweet woman. Bernice was an amazing woman, actually. She was pretty awesome.
Well, I know, but
if they had a question, they could send it to her and she would respond back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought, okay, it sounds to me like the sanctioned clubs weren't where it's at, like the independent.
They weren't. And they got worse as the years went on.
Yeah.
They were giving out less stuff. I mean, people were quitting the Beatles fan club right and left in 1967, not because they didn't like the Beatles anymore, because they didn't like the club.
Right.
But that was transferred to, well, the Beatles aren't popular anymore. Look, their fan club's going way down in numbers.
Yeah.
But the independent clubs are going way up in numbers.
Yeah.
There was no way to track that.
Yeah, the press was hungry by that time for any proof that the Beatles were waning. And
that was one way to look, was, well, what's their official fan club? How many members are there now?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Lena, but before I do.
Well,
Go.
Well, I had a question that kind of ties in with that. So one of the chapters in your book, I didn't get a chance to read it real closely, but Jude and I were talking about chapter 2, where you examined the North American city that really started the Beatle fan clubs. And a lot of towns claimed that they were the place that started it all. But tell us a little bit about the controversy that went around that claim to fame. Or is it too big?
A lot of the radio stations, that's how the fan club started, was through radio stations. So in, like, late 1963, early 1964, before the Beatles came to America, the radio stations and Capitol Records paired up to have Beatles fan clubs. And from what I can tell, the real first one is New Orleans.
Yes.
That's the one I can tell. But they all claim, like, Chicago, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, some, like, little tiny town somewhere, like, all said, well, we had the very first Beatles fan club. And, they probably didn't even know there was one in New Orleans.
Right. There was no internet, so nobody knew.
Right. It's not like they were going around asking everybody, so does your radio station have a Beatles fan club? Are we going to be the first? They just assumed they were the first. Now, Chicago was the first station in the United States to play the Beatles.
Right.
I mean, I think that's been discovered and proven, not by me, by, other people. And so I could see why Chicago might think they had the first Beatles fan club, because we played them first, so people heard them first from us, so we had the first club. But from what I can tell, it was, and they misspelled Beatles on their fan club card in New Orleans. It was Beattles.
Well, that's because we pronounce very carefully. We say Beatles.
So maybe that way.
It might be the
one
French.
of the others was like, no, it wasn't New Orleans. They didn't have, it was spelled wrong, so it wasn't the right group. I don't know.
Well, hey, tell us something, because we see the top of this genius's head down here, and it says Janet Davis. There I see a little bit. Hello, Janet. Tell us a little bit about the role she played, Sarah.
Janet edited the book, and Janet, Jude, you've worked with Janet before. She is meticulous. Every comma, every period, she doesn't miss anything. And she did such a great job with the editing of the book. And anytime I needed her, she just jumped on it. I appreciated everything she did so much. Again, she's another one. I just couldn't do it without her.
Hey, Janet.
An absolute pleasure to work with, as you have been, Jude.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And I think Lena, whoever nailed it earlier, was one of the real perks was getting to actually read this book, which when I heard it was in the works, I was, excited and I couldn't wait. And getting to read it and, throw a question back at Sarah or talk about things. The energy was palpable. When you read this book, you just are swept up in the energy of these fans who were so creative, and they got crazy at times. They sort of, pushed the boundaries a little bit, but they did these creative projects. They just wanted to show their love and appreciation, like the same love and appreciation that we have for the Beatles. And I just can't say enough about how much I enjoyed working on this book.
Hey, Janet, I don't know that your sign showed up on the screen because you weren't talking. So if you'll say one more thing and hold your sign up, it'll show up on Zoom. Hold it up a little bit higher. Up, 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 up. There you go. Back up just a little tiny bit. Back up. There you go.
Nice.
Funny.
That's great.
Well, I meant it because Sarah's done such amazing work, and the amount, I know you can appreciate this, Amy, the granular, the tedious work that must have been at times, the newspaper clippings that she found, because I found her archive online. I think it's newspapers.com or something or other, where because I was checking that the commas were all in the right place and everything, and I discovered her archive. My goodness, this was such an amazing amount of research. I'm thrilled that these stories are now immortalized, because these people are not going to be around forever. The people who were 14 and so in 1964, their stories need to be told and shared. And this, you really found something, you really found a Beatles little story there that had never been told before, Sarah.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I won the fellowship to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Archives and Library. So I was flown out to Cleveland and got to spend a week in their archives. Mm-hmm. And so I had, free access to all these different newspapers and magazines, just tons of stuff. So that's where a lot of the research came from that. And I couldn't believe I won this thing, but it was really cool because there was a lot of books and a lot of articles, a lot of old magazine cuttings, and they had all digitized and everything. So
but I just wanted to interject too that with Sarah's personal collection of memorabilia and ephemera, it's just, that's what infuses the book a lot, because you don't feel like it's just this nameless, faceless person who's sort of just going through files and throwing this thing together full of, lists and numbers and everything. A lot of the images, a lot of the stories I've not read before, I had like no idea. But the interesting thing is sometimes when I'm laying this thing out and I'm relaying it out and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is getting longer and longer. And where do I put this photo? And, it was that, that has the tedious label to it, but it's not tedious. It has a purpose, all of this work that goes into and all the research, and to make it readable and relatable is like the biggest thing that I found. That's why, like with Janet, I enjoyed reading it. It just wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going through and sticking this in there. And I think that was part of the issues before I came on board. As you know, you just have to you can't be embarrassed to say, I am so passionate about the subject matter. I don't care. I just love this so much. And that's what shows up in Sarah's book.
Yeah,
well, Amy, some of the girls that I talked to said, well, I've never told anyone this story before. And I was like, well, why haven't you ever told them? They go, well, no one's ever asked. No one's ever showed any interest in it. My family's not interested. They tell me, and we heard that. We know you met the Beatles because you were in the fan club. You met the Beatles. We heard it. They're like, she's like, nobody's ever been interested to know it. So I've just kind of kept it to myself.
Yeah.
That may solve a riddle that I've had for a long time, because when I first started writing the John Lennon series 36 years ago, I thought that it was going to be read by all those girls that showed up at the airport. I thought they're going to love this because they're going to be able to go back in time and start day one. They're going to watch the Beatles grow and come into their own, and they're going to love it. I sell to no women. 93% of my purchasers are men. And I just never thought that that would be the case. And I wonder if these people who were in the fan club were made to feel ashamed of what they did, or who cares, or don't talk to me about that, or that's stupid, or and now maybe they will step into their own.
I think there's some truth to that, because toward the end of the book, I started to see that happening after the Beatles had broken up, the fan club was still going strong. But by 1971, there were some things I read and were told about fans being made fun of for liking the Beatles. That's baby stuff. And there was one, it was a young man who was a fan club secretary for his state, and he was hiding his material that he was getting under his bed for when his buddies came over, because he didn't want them to know that he was a Beatles fan still, because that was old news, and that was baby stuff, and he needed to grow up. Like, that was the message in 1971 and 72 that was giving out to the fans.
Wow.
Which is so crazy to think of now. Like,
yeah, really strange, really strange. Well, sorry I jumped in there, Lena. I wanted to introduce Janet because we could only see that she was looking mysterious down there.
Yeah, you did a spectacular job, Janet and Amy. I just really even though scrolling through a digital file, it just brought a smile to my face. So that brings me to the question: is it going to be sold as an ebook as well as a physical book?
That was the plan. I don't know if that's still the plan.
Okay.
That was at some point on the docket, and now it hasn't been brought up again with my publisher. I know we got hardback and paperback, but maybe ebook once we get the hardback and paperback going.
Okay.
I just want to interject too. I mean, it brings to light that, all of these women here are so enthusiastic about, just reading a PDF, or, in the old days, they would call them galleys. And me just putting the thing together, as it went along. But I also find, Jude, that when I'm looking at the base of people, they want something to hold. I don't know. Is that how you have found things? I mean, like, Sarah, you did your first book, and now, here we are years later. Did you find that people had no problem, say, at fests? They want to touch the thing?
They do. It seems to me that Beatle fans especially want a hard copy of a book, unless they're traveling somewhere and going to read it, like on the airplane or something. But I know I've been told from other fans, and I agree with them, that they want to keep this stuff for their own research. And if it is on a file, who's to say that the file's not going to get corrupt, or that something's going to happen, it's going to get wiped out and they can't get it. If you have a book, you have the book.
Right.
And technology changes so much, and there might have been a book that was out today, and 20 years from now, somebody might want to do research on it and they can't access that file again. So that's a concern that people are having, because they want to save it for their own research later, which makes sense to me, because I agree.
My ebook is what keeps me alive, because
your book's huge and people want to read it on the go.
And it's with only 1,000 books printed, that's gone quickly. And then, the ebook is what makes me able to keep going, because the money I make off the ebook is the only thing that keeps me alive. But there are collectors who want to get the physical book, and they're going to want your physical book because your physical book is work of art. I mean, it would be like saying, give me an e-file of Eric Cash's painting. No, we don't want, we want the painting. So it really is a work of art.
Well, thank you. I'm happy with it. I'm really happy with it. I'm still kind of in daze that it's even like we're at this point, but.
I was in a daze with Janet's work because I was like, how's this going to be? But actually, Janet just like raked through everything, like one of those little, rakes that you do with the Zen garden and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's where I felt I got into it, because I have like 6 tabs open. I have Janet's work. I have the stuff that Sarah went through. And then I have my actual files I'm working on. And Janet just nailed it. You know what I mean? She just had so much focus that I didn't even have a problem with it. I was just like, okay. Maybe 1 or 2 questions. I don't know, Janet, how many times? We didn't go back and forth too much on corrections, did we, Janet?
We did not. And I think originally you came in after I was already starting. Am I right on that, Sarah?
Yes.
I was kind of off and running. And when I say off and running, I mean, I could not put this book down. I couldn't give myself a break from it because I wanted to keep reading it. And Jude, the same thing happened with your book. It would be 10:30 at night and I'd say, okay, just 1 more chapter. I just wanted to keep reading it. But so I was kind of working away in my little cubby here and talking to Sarah. And then Amy swooped in and everything changed for the better.
Definitely. Yes.
That's a lovely thing. And Amy, tell us about, and I swear, Lena, we're getting back to the Dallas chapters, but tell us really quick about Right Here, because I don't know that our viewers, I love it. I'm already a Right Here fan, but it's taken me, 3 days, but tell people about that as well.
Well, I had started doing book reviews specifically to give a lot of sort of unknown independent people like Sarah the opportunity to have their books, be given a wider audience. And I'm just the kind of person that I'm not a nitpicker. I'm not going to say, if I was handed Albert Goldman's book, okay, maybe I got an issue with that. But the overall thing was I started doing these reviews and I couldn't believe there were so many books out there. So I've eventually migrated over to Substack, which is a very friendly platform for writers. And I have sort of not given it much thought. I just started doing it. So I just sort of independently go after people who write books. And I do my reviews in my Right Here Substack publication. And I send it out and people can subscribe. They can read it for free. They can support me if they'd like to. By donating. That's the general Substack sort of umbrella. That's how they work. And I'm really finding that has been the best feedback for me as far as doing reviews that people may not necessarily know about some books. Maybe they're skewing a little bit more academic. I do like to read a lot of sort of academic type books. From the academic publishers, notably like Bloomsbury, so or independent publishers. So, like I said, it's been very rewarding to see that. And like I say, a lot of people have commented this has been an excellent read, or it gives them a boost to see their work, especially since Substack now is getting a lot more recognition on its own for a lot of people to be able to go to.
So it's not all, you don't do just books about music or rock and roll or that genre. You do books of any genre.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my focus has been the Beatles since I first started. I am currently right now in the process of reading Lucy O'Brien's book on Karen Carpenter. It's called Lead Sister, the Karen Carpenter story. And I did Ann Moses's autobiography. So I'm really into, my subculture is pop pop
Right.
culture. But yeah, I can't turn down a Beatles book as far as it's coming down the line. So I just again recently reviewed Bob Keeling's book, and which is very good because Larry Kane had some very nice things to say about it just very recently. And
I'm in the middle of reading it right now.
yeah, it's fantastic.
It's really good.
I put him on my subscriber list, and he emails back to me. He goes, this was literally his email to me. He goes, Amy, what's up? And I'm like, Larry, would you like to subscribe to my right here, my publication on Substack? And the next thing I know, I get an email and Larry's on my list. So it was fantastic. And he wrote some very, very nice things about Bob's books. So not a big overplug for Bob, but Sarah and I know.
Oh, his book is great. I mean, I'm halfway through it and I can't wait to get back to reading it tonight because it's been really good.
Yeah, and I put the word into to review Ken Womack's book when it comes out on Mal Evans. So that's how it kind of works. Nobody says no. Let's put it that way. I'll ask, and most people are like, yeah, here you go. So, in Sarah's book, it's just like, yes.
Definitely. I'm getting ready to write one for Culture Sonar for next month. So it'll come out in April, but yeah, great. It's sincerely a great book. And I know from my standpoint, because both Lena and Janet are editors for my book and have completely different territories. Lena's focus, well, of course, she looks up everything and makes sure that I'm saying the right things about everything, but she'll say, okay, on page 223, you talk about how scared John is to lip sync because he can't remember lyrics, and lip syncing, you've got to get it word for word. And 2 pages later, you've got him singing. I'm like, ugh. So it's a completely different, they're doing 2 completely different things, but it takes a village. And I know, Sarah, you would say that it really, all the people that worked on the book mattered, right?
Yes, definitely. And I couldn't have done it without Eric being so encouraging too, because I don't know how many times I'd call him and be like, forget it, I'm done, this isn't gonna work. He's like, no, it's gonna work, come on, get back to it. So he had so many good ideas, and he just understands things that I don't understand. It's like, I can write the thing, I don't understand all this other stuff.
Yeah, and that's how I felt about it too, is that even though I came into it sort of like in the middle, everybody, including Eric and Sarah, and then later on Janet at the end, everybody was just like, we're almost there. We're always, but is this thing ever going to end? And then when it all came together, I was just like, wow, this is a thing.
I know, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, okay, Lena, we've interrupted you the last time. Go.
Hey, no, it's quite all right. Well, I just had some questions on the book, and because Jude and I both kind of talked about different aspects of it, but one of the stories that we liked was the 2 rival Dallas chapters. I'm sorry, it got kind of loud. That were bridging the gap and working together to get to meet the Beatles. So
yeah, that's a great story.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I have to thank Mark, is his last name Nabashek? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but
Nabashek.
Yes, he is the one that gave me all of his files from that story, because he owns all the memorabilia that goes along with it, and at the story as well that was written. So he sent me everything he had on that. So that's how I found out about this story, but it's really good. And there was newspaper articles, but there were 2 sanctioned clubs in Dallas, and they did not give themselves cute names, unfortunately, like some of them did. There was club number 24 and number 56. Beatles Club 24 and 56. Like, come on, girls, get with it. Cute name. And all the other ones had cute little names. But anyway, they were big clubs. And they wanted to, of course, everybody wanted to meet the Beatles. That was like the main reason why most fan clubs existed to begin with. It's because they wanted to meet the Beatles.
That was their goal.
So 2 separate clubs that's going on at the same time with the same goal. They're going to meet the Beatles. So club number 24, they start really doing the work months ahead of time before the Beatles came in September. They found out what hotel they're going to stay at, and they became friends with the employees at the hotel. You know, buddied up with them, and would go visit them every day and everything like that. They bought the Beatles black cowboy hats and a gigantic lighter that was engraved some weird stuff like "To Sweetie John and Ringo Dingo." I was like, something bizarre. I'm like, why would, okay, girls, that's fine. And so they had this plan that they were going to go into the hotel and meet the Beatles. They contacted Brian Epstein, said, we got these gifts. Got a letter back from Brian. Said, we'll try to arrange it so you can give them the gifts. So they feel like they're in.
Wow.
Meanwhile, club number 56, they had rented or, went and checked out a room below the Beatles suite. So they're in the hotel with a key.
Wow.
And they have legal permission to be in the Beatles hotel. So they're going to go up, and they had belts, cowboy-like belts with the Beatles' names stitched on them. Now, each one, Ringo, John, George, Paul, it had their name. So they wanted to present their gifts. So when the 2 clubs who had been kind of at each other, like we're the better club, they decided to join together to meet the Beatles and to publicize like we're going to work together. So the one set of girls knew the people that worked at the hotel. The other girl had the key. They meet up, go up to her room. They can't get kicked out because they have the key. And the 3 girls, there's 3 of them, 2 from one of the clubs and the 1 with the room. So they're in the corridor, kind of around where the Beatles are, kind of like seeing, are they there? And they see a police officer was going to throw them out. At the same time, one of the people they made friends with comes by and goes, oh, hi, girls. How you doing? Oh, yeah, today's the day the Beatles are, And the police officer was like, oh, well, obviously, I guess you know them. Like, you're supposed to be here. And things happened, and they went into the Beatles suite. Brian was like, oh, the girls with the hats, come on in. They were smart, though. They did not bring the hats that day. So they were because they wanted to meet the Beatles a second time and give them the hats. They purposely left the hats at home.
Oh, how funny.
So they go into the party that's happening, and this was like the night, actually early morning, the concert was going to be that late that night. So it was, like the day before. And they hang around, they hear about the hats, the Beatles, Brian's asking them about these black hats. And they had been given beige hats when they arrived that didn't really fit and they didn't like. And so Brian's telling them this. And then John picks up the beige hat and goes, you mean this one, Eppie? And throws it across the room. And they're like, the Beatles are like, we want our black hats. You got to come back and give us our black hats. Then Brian said, well, why don't you all want their autographs? Come on. He gets paper from the hotel room, passes it around. He signs it. 4 Beatles sign it. They get pictures.
Wow. And
then Paul asks how old they are, or George asks how old they are. And they're 15 and 16. Uh-oh, we're illegals in here. Gotta go.
Yeah.
That was it. We got illegals in here. That's what somebody said. And you guys, girls gotta go.
Oh my gosh.
It's like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, funny.
So then they got to meet them the next day and give them the cowboy hats and the belts. And there's tons of pictures of them riding on horses in Alton, Missouri, wearing those cowboys hats and those belts.
Brian wore his a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they made sure to get one for Brian too, because everybody loved me. Brian had his own fan club. Girls would pick him as their favorite. If there was 5 girls in a friend group, one of them had to be the Brian girl.
Yeah.
It was like unwritten rules.
That is so cute.
It is. I just love that. I think that's so sweet. Those same girls got to meet the Beatles again in 1966. That story's in there too.
That's terrific. Well, is there any other story? I know So you have all of this Beatles stuff started with your blog, Meet the Beatles for Real. So this was just a natural progression for you from that blog that you've been writing forever.
14 years.
Yeah, amazing. So you share people's stories of them meeting the Beatles, and so you've heard a lot of stories, seen a lot of things. So is there any story from this book that was particularly touching or outlandish, or what would maybe be your favorite?
It's not really a story. It's just kind of how things were that just really touched my heart, was how involved these young girls were in charity for the Beatles. Like, they would raise money for children's hospitals and for the JFK Library. But the one that really touched me was there was a Paul McCartney fan club that raised money for breast cancer in 1965 in memory of Paul's mom. And I think to be that enlightened, like to be that thoughtful at that age, and to have bake sales and talent shows to raise money for those causes. There was another one, the John Lennon fan club wrote at Christmas time, "Don't send gifts to Julian for Christmas this year. John and Cynthia will take care of whatever toys he needs. Instead, in the name of the Beatles and John, send toys to your local children's hospital or to needy." And to think that like 14 to 16-year-old girls are saying those things, it just really touched me that they use the Beatles as a springboard to help others.
Right.
And that was one of the big things they said. They wanted to not be just seen as the screaming girls. They are the screaming girls at the concert, but the other days of the year, they are not, and they're still Beatle fans. And that was kind of what a lot of the fan clubs wanted to show everybody, that you just think of us as these screaming girls. That's one time out of the year when they come to town and do their concerts. That's not us all year long.
Right. Did the Beatles know about it?
I don't know. Oh, well, the fan clubs knew about it, and the official fan club knew about it. I don't know if any of that ever got back to the Beatles or not, but
Paul and Ringo will know now, because
that's right. They will. But I think the Beatles kind of knew some of the stuff. The Beatles really loved their fan club members. I mean, I think Brian really instilled that into them, but that's also just how the four of them were. I mean, when they found out somebody was from the fan club, it was like, hold everything, stop. We're going to meet you. We're going to shake your hand and give you a kiss on the cheek. Like, wow, you're fan club people. You put all this work and effort to us. Or later, when the Beatles weren't in America, if a fan club member came knocking on their door and said, "I'm a fan club member," it was like, well, come on in and have a drink. Let's have some lemonade, sit down and talk for a while, which is crazy to think you'd knock on George Harrison's door and he'd be like, "Oh, you're from the fan club in America? Well, come in. Here's an orange soda."
Yes, one of my favorite stories is Pat Mancuso standing on the street waiting for George to pull up, and he pulls up and rolls his window down and goes, "You're Pat Mancuso." He knew her.
Yeah. Yeah, I never met her, but knew her from her photos.
Pretty darn good.
Her whole story's in there too.
Didn't she later get one of those letters?
She did.
She did.
Yeah. Amazing that someone that worked that hard would get one of those shame letters, but
Yeah.
Well, they wanted to rehaul the whole fan club, and to do that, they had to wipe out anything that wasn't sanctioned. That was their mindset. And it ended up being a very good fan club after that, but it took all the way to 1968 before it could be a really good fan club. And by that time, the Beatles were almost broken up.
Right.
Well, it is, Sarah, it's an amazing book. And I know we've only touched on the tip of the iceberg, because I know you've made a lot of friends through writing the book, or people maybe
Mhm.
you knew before, like Marty Edwards from the
Yeah.
Chicagoland Beatles?
Actually, when I first interviewed Marty was how I first met her, and now she's like one of my dearest friends.
Yeah,
But
we
I
love
didn't
Marty.
really know her because I interviewed her early on, and that's kind of how I got to know her. Was I sat down with her and interviewed her.
And what about Kathleen Kaiser from the San Diego Club?
Now, Ivor Davis gave me her name. I had never, didn't even know who she was. I tell her she's the first Beatle fan
How come?
because she had the Love Me Do 45 in late 1962 when no one else did, and she absolutely loved it and played it at her junior high school dance.
A friend of mine had it and tried to tell me that it was the Beatles, and I was like, "You're absolutely wrong. That is not the Beatles. They've never written a song like that." We had a huge fight over it. Of course, she was right.
Well, I don't know of any other American fan in 1962. So that's why I said I think you're the very first Beatles fan in America.
They had this great idea at the San Diego Club. I know you put this in the book, to make a Beatles mountain in the hills of outside San Diego. And so the first day they go up there and they climb the hill and they start clearing away the cactus and the rock and they're like, "This is done. We're not doing this. This project is over."
She gave me a picture of them working on it. That's in the book. That was fun.
I think there's like about 3 pictures, isn't there, Sarah? Like, them going.
Yes, there are from the Beatles fan club.
Yes.
See, look, they came up with a cute name.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
My favorite name is the Cheese Forever Club.
I
That
would
will
agree with that.
always be my absolute favorite.
Wisconsin?
No, it's from Houston because they read in some magazine that Paul McCartney's favorite food is cheese.
Oh boy.
He changed it to the some other like Houston Beatles fan club or something. Like she changed it to a real name.
No. Sarah, my favorite one, my absolute favorite one was the Potty. What was it, the Potty Birds?
Oh, the Potty Birds. Yeah, I have the fan club card for them. That's the Patty Boyd fan club.
Yeah.
Or the Flying Cow.
Yeah.
That one's a good
Ringo's
one.
bar in his house is the Flying Cow.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the Maureen Starkey fan club is the Flying Cow.
Yeah, we have one in our house, the Flying Pig, in honor of Ringo.
But at first I was like, why would they name Maureen's fan club the Flying Cow? That's so insulting.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's the name of this bar in this house. But that's kind of obscure.
Well, do you know if and when you'll be speaking at the Chicago, at the New York, at the Jersey, New York Metro?
I will be speaking. They don't tell me that until the week before. So I'm not allowed to know. It's a secret until the week before. But as far as I know, I'm giving a presentation. I'm going to be on 2 panels.
Right. That is
and most people don't know, and I'm trying to spread the word. I am premiering the book at the Fest. It will be available at the Fest in New Jersey, nowhere else. And I will be there to sign them. And I'm sure Eric would sign them. Janet, would you sign some books?
Sure.
So we could get some of the team there to sign them. But I'm trying to spread the word so people know that this book is going to be available at the Fest.
It is.
It won't be at the Fest, but I want one. Save one.
After that, then on the 3rd, they'll be purchased can be purchased on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. They're available for pre-sale right now.
Put one aside with her name on it.
Because I think they're going to be very popular, and I don't want to not get one.
Oh. For sure. Well, Sarah, we could go for another 2 hours because the stories are great. And
I know. I could talk about. I say that all the time. I could talk about the Beatles all day.
I'm telling you. But you did your research, you did your groundwork, you did your due diligence, and you stuck with it. And I can't tell you how many times I've quit and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And then, I'll come to my senses and go back to work.
I know I quit a bunch of times, but
thank you.
I kept thinking, Sean wanted me to finish this book. That was something he wanted me to do. So in his memory, I'm going to finish this book. Like that was always kind of would ground me. Like, okay, I could hear his voice going, you have to write this book.
That's right. And you did. And I know
Yep.
he's right there on the cover. So guys, if you're going to the New York Metro Fest for Beatles Fans, the 31st of March through the 2nd of April, make sure you go hear Sara talk about her books. And if you have time, you can come hear me talk early on Sunday morning in the main ballroom. I'm the early bird chick. And we are going to be talking about the Beatles at Shea Stadium. So we love, both Sara and I would appreciate it if you spend some time with us and go get that book. It's better than parading, I promise. And it will be available in the marketplace. Sara, will you be in the marketplace with it?
I will. I'm going to have 28 books with me.
And you'll take order forms if there are more people, right? That buy the book.
Yeah.
You can.
I'm hoping to sell some.
You'll sell all those 28, but I think you'll need to have order forms because I think you'll sell more than those.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
You will.
We'll see.
You will. Janet, thank you for being with us and giving your time. I know you really had to revamp tonight to be here. And thank you for all the work that you do on Octopus's Garden every other month. It's fabulous. It's an original fanzine. It's still true to the nature of the original fanzines. And we appreciate it and look forward to it every single month.
You're keeping the fan club going.
Absolutely. And I hope it goes on for a long time because I don't know if you guys are aware, but there are only 2 print fanzines left in the United States.
I know.
I've been working on Melissa Davis's bibliography and putting together a list of fanzines, which is an endless task, but to find, there are more internationally than I was aware of, but there are just those 2 left, Beatle Fan and Octopus's Garden. And I will be very sad the day when there are none. I really will.
Well, I don't think that'll happen. I think it will keep going on because the interest is just as high. I just got an email from a girl in Canada who is 16, and she said, quote unquote, John Lennon is my life.
Whoa. Good.
She's 16.
Good.
So, and Amy, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
It's so good to visit with you.
Great job. Great job, both of you.
Beautiful. And Sara, from all of us,
we're very proud of you, Sara.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
We will see all of you. Amy, will you be at the Fest for Beatles Fans in New Jersey?
I won't be there. I have tentatively put my karma out there to be at the one in Chicago in August.
Okay, good. Good. You'll love it. Have you been to that one before?
Yes, in fact, actually, I went to one in late 98, and then I didn't go back again until 2016. And by that time, I did, it's actually, I believe it is on my Substack. I did it in memoriam for Louise Harrison. And I actually did video interviews with a bunch of people there, and that included Louise. I interviewed Mark Lapidus. I interviewed Vivek Tiwari, and trying to think who else is, Mark Hudson, had to do Mark Hudson, and Billy J. Kramer.
Oh, good. Well, we will look forward to seeing you, and Janet, we'll see you in just a few weeks.
A few weeks, Sara and Jude.
Counting the days down. I'm so relieved. I found out I only have to give 2 presentations instead of 3, and I was hyperventilating and actually, trying to get this audio book finished and get all those presentations done. I was like, but 2 I can handle. So we'll see you all there. Thank you, Sara, so much.
Thank you,
Sara. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Great to be in all the company of these brilliant women.
And Galena, we can't end without our official.
I know. So until we meet again, Jude and I wish you food for thought, food for the soul, food for the love of rock and roll.
Draw and shine on.